Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from New York City. I'm Susan Tehrani. These are the latest stories for this hour. Moscow says the Russian army will respond to any provocation by Ukrainian forces in Moldova's Moscow-backed separate region of Transnistria. Ukrainians pay tribute to fallen loved ones and vow to fight on to victory, while Russia said its forces were making gains in battles in the east as its invasion enters a second year with no end in sight.
Well, the situation behind me, probably the viewers can see, it depicts of destruction that has been caused. This city was under Russian occupation for about 9 months, Eric, and what you see are...
As the West pledges to back Ukraine for as long as it takes, Russia pledges to win the war. WION brings you all aspects of the first anniversary of Europe's largest conflict since World War II. China calls for urgent peace talks as it releases its plan to end the war in Ukraine, but Western powers quickly rebuff the proposals while warning against Beijing's closeness to Moscow. On February 24, 2023, Russia invaded Ukraine. 1 year on, the war continues with thousands of lives lost, cities turned into ruins, and lives of Ukrainian residents turned upside down. 1 year ago, Russian President Putin announced a special military operation in Ukraine. Putin's aim was to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine, a former Soviet country. Ukrainians flagged Putin's aim to erase their 1,000-year national identity, and a stiff resistance began taking shape. Today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky pledged to push for victory in 2023.
Сердечно поздравляю с наступающим Новым годом всех участников специальной военной операции. Тех, кто сейчас здесь.
I ask everyone who is on St. Sophia Square, everyone who hears this, to commemorate with a moment of silence the memory of everyone who has died for our country. I am proud of you. We all, each and every one, are proud of you. May this be proudly proclaimed everywhere. Ukraine is alive.
Since then, Ukraine managed to reclaim some of the lost territory. Western countries came together to back Ukraine. They gave and pledged billions of dollars of military aid and humanitarian aid. World organizations pledged investment towards the destroyed or lost infrastructure. And as both the sides anticipate a possible spring and summer offensive, the United Nations voted overwhelmingly to demand Russia immediately and unconditionally withdraw its troops from Ukraine. Ukraine earned a strong backing in a non-binding vote where 141 member countries voiced support for the resolution. 7 opposed, while 32, including China and India, abstained. India's permanent representative to the UN, Ruchira Kamboj, said the resolution wasn't enough to achieve the goal of a lasting peace. However, India said it will always call for dialogue and diplomacy as the only viable way out to the conflict. But Russia dismissed the resolution, with its UN representative Vasily Nebenzia calling Ukraine neo-Nazi and accusing the West of sacrificing the country and the developing world in their desire to beat Russia. Meanwhile, the United States announced an additional $2 billion in security assistance to Ukraine. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan also said the G7 nations will announce on Friday a new round of sanctions against Russia. The sanctions will include countries that are trying to backfill products that are denied to Russia. The UK issued more sanctions against Russia, including export bans on every item it has used on the battlefield and import bans of iron and steel goods. When Sullivan was asked about the F-16 jets, which Kyiv requested to resist the possible Russian offensive, he said F-16s are not a question for the short-term fight. F-16s are a question for the long-term defense of Ukraine. Rishi Sunak also urged allies to move faster in order to provide arms to Ukraine. UK has been Ukraine's most prominent ally since its conflict with Russia, UK being a key NATO member state, and G7 has also echoed UK's call to provide jets and tanks. Meanwhile, the first batch of Leopard 2 tanks have been delivered to Ukraine by Poland. The news was confirmed by a Polish news agency. Later today, the Polish Prime Minister will announce the delivery of the German-made tanks. According to experts, Western weaponry can turn the course of the war for Ukraine, as it has already proven its battlefield capabilities. In August, a better armed Ukraine launched a southern counteroffensive around Kherson, the only land gateway to Crimea. Remember, Crimea was annexed by Russia in 2014 and hosts its Black Sea Fleet. On November 9th, Russia ordered forces to abandon Kherson, the only regional capital it had taken so far in its invasion. Okay, let's get an update on where Kherson lies now, 1 year on after the invasion. Our correspondent, Anas Malik, is in Kherson, Ukraine, right now. Anas, despite Russian forces abandoning the only regional capital that they had ever seized during this war and invasion, it seems that attacks continue and civilians are still being killed. Can you give us a picture of how it is on the ground in Kherson?
Well, Susan, while you were asking me the questions, we've heard at least, and then there's another one, we've heard at least 3 or 4 smaller blasts, or what is believed to be sounds from the shelling that has been happening, and it's been going on the entire day. It gets louder as it falls nearer to you. That's another one. So it gets louder as it falls nearer to where we are. It's happening in this region, in the Kherson Oblast, not in the Kherson city, fortunately, but behind me, what you see, this bus stop that was shelled just this morning. I'll get a side for the benefit of our viewers and I'll try to show it to you. That's a shard of the rocket that came out from the shelling that was shelled just this morning here in Kherson city. This is very near to the Dnieper River, and by and large, this city, the city of Kherson, it wears a very deserted look. It won't be wrong to say that this is a ghost town of all sorts. I've been speaking to people on background because they're very wary of speaking on camera. Something that is very surprising is that the people who are living nearer to the Dnieper River, they've been given flak jackets like these in a bid to protect themselves, because they refuse to move out. They say that they've spent their entire life over here, so they would prefer if it were to die, they would prefer dying over here rather than moving out and moving towards safety. That is one aspect to it. But the entire journey from Mykolaiv to Kherson, where I'm standing, this is roughly about 70 kilometers. In ideal cases, it would take about 40 minutes. Today it took us an hour and a half. Because of the road situation. There was literally a battle that was fought not just on these roads but beyond this on the highway to Mykolaiv, very near to inside, in fact in Mykolaiv city as well. So there's another one. So it remains grim. There's this palpable fear, and the fear is real. The shelling has intensified in the past 2 hours or so. We've been seeing this particular region being shelled in the past 72 hours. We've been seeing those visuals coming in from other parts of Kherson, and today we're here since the morning and we've been hearing those shells falling right, left, center, very near to where we are. Susan?
So, Anas, my question is, what you're seeing on the ground over there, is it sheer destruction? Or do you think that, you talk about the resilience of the people of Kherson and their desire not to leave their homes, and that's completely understandable. But under what conditions are they living in right now?
Well, this city was under occupation of Russia for about 9 months. 9 months and 8 days. The Russian side occupied it on the 2nd of March, and then they had vacated it on in the first week of November last year, and eventually the Ukrainian army had advanced and recaptured it. So now the people are hopeful, and they're of the opinion the sheer desire to stay back is under the pretext that their army is strong enough that they would be protecting them. But at the end of the day, Ukraine needs arms, and that is the reason we're seeing that it's a fight that is utilizing more and more arms. And the reason we're seeing that the Ukrainian leadership has been demanding arms and weaponry from the international community, wherever President Zelensky speaks, wherever Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba speaks, wherever the Defense Minister speaks, whosoever they speak to, they've been. That's another one, and that was pretty close. So, so they've been requesting more and more armory. They've been requesting more and more weapons, and they're hopeful that they would be able to get something or the other. Just today, we saw that the Polish Prime Minister is in Kyiv, and I was listening to you earlier that the delivery of 2 Leopard tanks have also been made from Poland to Ukraine. So this would help Ukraine strengthen its resolve and its arsenal in order to give a pushback as and when they expect a Russian invasion or Russian offensive to happen, and which can happen as early as spring this year, as it's being speculated or talked about by the Ukrainian side. Susan?
Anas, thank you so much for that update. Please stay safe, and we'll talk to you very soon. We have a guest with us. Let's talk more about this issue. Dmytro Zolotukhin, a former Deputy Minister of Information Policy of Ukraine, is joining us live from Kyiv. Mr. Minister, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Apologies if I didn't. As the war passes the 1-year mark, Russia's strategy is clear: to wait out the West. But the question is, how unified, first of all, the West will remain, and how much of the world, at least, it's partially able to keep on its side. And when that is clear, then ultimately that will determine the outcome of the conflict. Do you agree with that?
Totally agree, because it's obvious that Ukraine now needs all the support that we can get. But the issue is that the victory of Ukraine on the battlefield against Russian full-scale invasion and the war that is pending since 2014 in Ukraine with Russian proxies on the east of Ukraine and with the annexation of Crimea and the illegal referendums held in there, victory of Ukraine on the battlefield and the restoration of the internationally recognized borders of Ukraine is not only the victory for Ukrainians, it's also the victory for all civilized nations in the world and all democratic nations in the world who wants to preserve the international order and international legislation that we are living in the world under. So I think that the unity of the Western countries and the unity of the world's countries that were shown on the United Nations General Assembly meeting yesterday is the signal that 141 vote for the resolution that says that the Russian troops have to go out of Ukrainian soil is the understanding that the victory of Ukraine and the restoration of the territorial integrity of the democratic country is everyone's will and is everyone's victory. And it's extremely painful that, unfortunately, India abstained from the vote in this voting, abstained from the expressing the solidarity with the rest of the countries.
Mr. Minister, thank you so much for joining us on WION. Please stay safe, and we look forward in speaking to you very soon.
Thank you.
Moving on to the latest tensions in the Korean Peninsula, North Korea has test-fired 4 strategic cruise missiles. On the other hand, U.S. and South Korean officials have held simulated or tabletop drills. North Korea test-fired 4 Hwasal-2 missiles towards the sea off the east coast of the Korean Peninsula. According to state media, the 4 missiles flew for nearly 3 hours in oval and H-shaped orbits above the sea and hit a preset target after traveling for 2,000 kilometers. Pyongyang said that the drill demonstrated the conflict readiness of its nuclear combat force. The launch came as the United States and South Korea took part in a tabletop exercise that focused on the nuclear threat from Pyongyang. A joint statement mentioned that the U.S. and South Korean delegations focused their discussion on maintaining peace and stability in the Korean Peninsula and considered potential options for responding to North Korea's nuclear weapons use. This was the 8th U.S. and South Korean Deterrence Strategy Committee tabletop exercise. The delegations, which were made up of military and defense officials, as well as personnel from South Korea's Foreign Ministry and the U.S. State Department, held the exercise on the same day as separate drills by Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo were taking place in the Sea of Japan. These drills were held with an emphasis on, quote, sharing ballistic missile target information and mastering detection, tracking, and interception procedures. U.S. and South Korean officials have warned the North could be preparing for its first test of a nuclear device since 2017. After the simulated exercises at the Pentagon, officials from U.S. and South Korea visited a naval submarine base in Georgia. During the visit, a senior U.S. Navy officer explained the mission of Ohio-class nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines. The United States has sought to reassure South Korea over America's so-called extended deterrence commitments after North Korea declared itself an, quote, irreversible nuclear power last year.
대통령들께서 먼저 이동하시겠습니다. 언론인 여러분들 저 기자회견에 와주시고 좋은 질문해 주셔서 감사합니다.
The United States, the world's biggest arms merchant, has unveiled a much-awaited overhaul of arms export policy with increased emphasis on human rights. According to reports, the new commercial arms transfer policy covers review of a security assistant government-to-government weapons transfers. It also includes licensed commercial sales of U.S. origin-made military equipment. One of the major changes in the policy addresses the possibility of the arms from the United States being used in human rights violations. According to the new policy, the State Department will not approve the weapons transfer if it assesses the arms more than likely to be used to commit crimes against humanity. According to the previous CAT policy, such transfers would only be made when Washington has an actual knowledge that the arms exported will be used for such acts. The new rules allow deals to be canceled if any human rights violations are documented after the announcement of the deal. Critics have long questioned the sale of weapons to countries like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates over the civilian death toll of the war in Yemen. Last year, the Biden administration was criticized over the sales of radars and aircrafts to Egypt. According to reports, the U.S. sells some $150 billion in weapons, services, and training a year. Former U.S. President Donald Trump considered weapons deals as a way to generate jobs in the United States.
But it's just a feed. It's not like you have to wait 10 minutes each time you buy. Say that a little louder on my team. Even though 10.
Fresh developments in the Alec Baldwin Russ shooting case. The Hollywood actor has pleaded not guilty to involuntary manslaughter for the fatal shooting of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of the movie Rust. The 64-year-old actor has maintained that he was told by the crew that the gun he was holding was not loaded. Documents filed in court show Baldwin is out on bail ahead of any future trial with several conditions. These include that he will not drink alcohol and that he will not possess firearms or dangerous weapons. He is also barred from having contact with any witnesses in the case. In October 2021, Alec Baldwin accidentally shot down Helena Hutchins during the rehearsals of the film in New Mexico. The movie's director, Joel Souza, was also wounded in the incident. He has also insisted that he did not pull the trigger, though FBI firearms experts have said this is not possible. Both Baldwin and the film's armorer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, face 2 alternative counts of voluntary manslaughter. And if found guilty, they face up to 18 months in jail and a $5,000 fine. That's all the time we have for WION Live Broadcast from New York City. I'm Susan Tehrani. Thank you so much for staying with us and watching. Don't go away. A lot more news and headlines coming up next on WION World is One.
There are many other